So, which kind of leads me into my next question about multivitamins. It's something that, especially as vegetarians, and you know because I come to you all the time about what I need to do with her, that so far we haven't had any issues, but it is a concern for a lot of parents, I guess, more for peace of mind that their kid has everything it needs. So, do they need multivitamins, and what brands?
Yeah, my blanket answer for this is no.
Okay.
So if you're focusing on getting the right amount of stuff into them, or at least presented to them, because remember that's your job.
Yes.
Then no, they do not need a multivitamin. So a lot of multivitamins they've got really low doses of lots of, they've got trace amounts, and so they're not going to give you a substantial boost.
Yeah.
I like the idea of what you said, their peace of mind. They make you feel better, and sometimes that means that it can take the pressure off.
Yeah.
And you might relax a little bit about the foods, but you don't need them. They really are a waste of money. If you do think that your child isn't eating well enough to be meeting their intake, go and get some professional help.
Yeah.
And they may need a supplement, but you are never going to be recommended a multivitamin. It'll be something more specific, more tailored to what they need. That's more important.
Yeah.
And if they are prescribed any particular medications or a supplement by anyone else, you need to avoid having any other multivitamins or anything like that, because it could have some adverse effects.
Okay.
So just because you bought it in the supermarket or the pharmacy doesn't necessarily mean it's a safe or good idea.
Yeah, okay, all right, cool. And also, like, if it was something that, if your doctor recommended that you got this supplement, is it okay to kind of go to Woolies and grab the same, not brand, but like the same thing that they've said off the shelf, or are we better off just going into the chemist and getting a brand like Bioceuticals or something like that?
It doesn't, as long as it's the same active ingredient,
Yeah.
but that can be really tricky if it's not your area of specialty. That can be quite tricky. So I would recommend talking to your pharmacist.
Yeah.
And just telling them, if you're on a budget, let them know, because it's not always the most expensive brand that's the best.
Yeah.
You just have to let them know what you've been recommended, and they will present you with your options.
Can you advise about that as well?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Probiotics.
Right, so probiotics are another one. So the science is emerging that supplements may be useful, but we just don't know yet. So I can't have a blanket recommendation that I think all kids should be on a probiotic to improve their gut health. There's a lot of different things that we can do for ourselves and for our kids to improve their gut health.
Yeah.
And it's not just about taking a tablet. We need to look after the bacteria that we've already got in there. So we do that by eating lots of fiber. So whole grain veggies, fruit, whole grain veggies, whole grains, fruit and veggies are rich in fiber. So getting lots of them means that we are feeding the good bacteria that we have in our tummy. We also need to look after it by not killing it off with too much processed foods, too many sugary foods, too many foods with too many additives, alcohol for us. Limiting that is going to look after it as well. So we kind of, if you think of it like an aquarium, if your fish start dying, you're not just going to go and buy more fish and put it in there. You're going to clean out the tank and look after the environment first before you go and top it up with more fish. It's probably like people they feel better if they're giving a probiotic. Truth bomb here, I gave Willow a probiotic when she was a baby because I felt so guilty that we couldn't breastfeed for longer. So when I stopped breastfeeding, I was giving her a probiotic, and somebody asked me, why are you giving her that probiotic? Is it a good one? I'm like, oh, just mum guilt. She really doesn't need it. It's probably not going to do anything, but geez, I feel better.
So it doesn't hurt them.
And so that didn't last very long. It was a baby biotic. It was one that was appropriate for them. So what can happen is kids who are naturally maybe have more upset tummies or a sensitive tummy, giving them a probiotic or foods that are really high in probiotics like a kombucha, it can give them an upset tummy. So it could give them runs, or it could give them a tummy ache. So you want to be careful if your kid's susceptible. Some kids have it and they're fine.
Yeah.
You just want to be careful. But I don't think most kids will see much benefit. So there's a lot of research to say that people with healthy microbiomes are sick less, they get less colds and flu, and that is all absolutely true. So looking after our gut health is important. Kids that have a healthier microbiome have less days off school and less days home from daycare, which is all great, but we don't know yet that taking a little probiotic tablet is enough to make a difference or not. It's probably going to be one of those things when our kids are grown up, they're going to say, hey, did your mum make you have those smoothies, with the green powder in it and the probiotic powder? Yeah, what idiots. That did nothing.
Yeah.
Because the science will probably catch up and will decide that, there's a different way of going about it that's going to be more effective. We just don't know yet. So it's probably not going to do any harm unless you've kind of got a family full of sensitive tummies, in which case you want to be careful. But it's probably not going to make too much of a difference.
Okay. You said about sugary and processed foods. So if your kid eats a lot of, and I know that it's really convenient as well to grab shit off the shelf, but a lot of the time it does have loads of sugar, sweeteners, artificial colours and flavours and things like that. So essentially, could that actually make them sicker in the sense that it'll throw off their gut health?
It can, and it depends on, as with most things, it's sort of a dose related response. It depends on how much of that processed stuff is getting into their diet. And sometimes we need a hand to have a really honest look at that. So a lot of people will make a lot of foods themselves, make a lot of stuff from scratch, but then you open their fridge and pantry and there's a lot of convenient stuff that gets used to make those healthy meals. Right. Now, that's not always a bad thing. I'm not a fantastic cook. I don't cook everything from scratch all the time, but it's just about knowing how to read food labels and actually have a look at what's in the food that you're buying. And if when you look at the ingredients list, if it doesn't read like a recipe of something that you could make yourself, put it back and find something that's a little bit more closer to those raw ingredients.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's very insightful. Thank you. I feel a bit better now. I'm like, sometimes I look at even my taco mix. That's just what I was thinking about. Yeah. So a lot of the time I use that because it's just all the spices in one. But most of the time, like not most of the time, they are ingredients that you pretty much just have.
Yeah. And it can be cheaper as well to make your own. And you've got to watch the sodium, especially for little kids. We want to make sure that they're not having too much sodium. Yeah.
So low salt where possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And sugar too. We want to be limiting our intake of sugar. So for little kids under 2, the recommendation is they have no added sugar. So that counts as, honey, maple syrup, all those other things as well. That should be kind of 0. Yeah. And then from 2, and we can sort of drip feed them a little bit more in. For older kids and adults, it's 6 teaspoons a day, which sounds like a lot. But, that's a can of soft drink. Yeah. That's, and if they're getting it from their tomato sauce and all these other meal bases that we're using throughout the day, a little bit of honey on their porridge, and before you know it, they've met the recommendation yet. They haven't even had any junk food.
Yeah. So if they are having junk food, you pretty much need no added sugar anywhere else.
That's right, yeah.
Wow. I didn't even know that. That's
and
crazy.
another way it creeps in is in a lot of foods labelled for kids.
Oh, I know.
Biscuits, yogurts. You think, okay, it's made for kids and it's made for toddlers. Surely it is a healthy choice. Doesn't have any added sugar, is low in sodium. Not always. Yeah. You have to read the back of the packs. And most of the time, the unflavoured, plain, normal, whole food variety that you would buy the family is often the best. Yeah. And it's cheaper and everybody eats it. And it gets rid of that idea that I'm a kid, I need something special. My food has to come in a packet.
Yeah. It is insane, isn't it? Because when I see that, I would have, before I knew better, I would assume that it had no added sugars, it had no added sweeteners, it had nothing but natural ingredients, but 100% not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Toddlers need a daily diet of 5 veg and 2 fruit.
It depends on how old they are. Yeah. So the recommendations change. So 1 to 2 year olds, and remember this is the ideal. Yeah. This is what we need to be offering them, not necessarily what they need to be eating. About 2 to 3 serves of fruit. Okay. And then that jumps up to 2.5 serves for a 2 to 3 year old. So everybody is probably familiar with the fact that when they had a young toddler, their appetite was huge. They were ravenous. They ate everything, and then all of a sudden they get to 2 and they stop, and you're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" But I thought my kid ate everything. Their needs drop. Okay. So if you've got a 1 to 2 year old, a 1 year old that's eating 2 to 3 serves of veg, and then they drop down a little bit, and they're only having 2.5 by the time they get to 3. That's okay. They only need a little bit less because their growth is slowed. Yeah. So they don't need as much energy. Yeah. So for a 1 to 2 year old, it's only half a serve of fruit, and for a 2 year old, it's 1 serve of fruit. Now I know a lot of people are going, "Oh wow, my kid has just eaten 4 bananas and 2 apples." It's not the end of the world. Yeah. For some kids, that can be a lot of fruit and it can cause tummy issues. Yeah. But for me, my only concern with kids that are eating a lot of fruit is what is that replacing? What aren't they eating? Oh, okay. So if they're filling up so much on fruit throughout the day, it usually means that they're not getting enough whole grains, they're not getting enough veggies, they're not getting enough meat. Yeah. So we need to get that into check. If your child meets all of their recommendations for the other food groups and smashes the fruit, go for it. They needed it. Yep. So for grains, it's 4 serves for 1 to 2 year old and 2 2 to 3 year olds. It's the same. Meat is 1 to 1.5 serves for 1 to 2 year olds, and then 2 to 3 year olds it's 1.5 serves as well. So that meat is all meat alternatives, which include beans and eggs and legumes and your protein sources, and that's to make sure that they get enough iron. And then lastly, what have we got? Dairy, 1 to 1.5 serves or 1.5 serves for your 2 to 3 year olds, and this includes their milk too. So if they're having breast milk, we kind of don't count as a dairy source. It's too hard to monitor how much they're having as toddlers. So we just count it as what cow's milk and cheese and yogurt and things that they're drinking. They actually don't need that much. So if they're having more than, say, 500 ml of milk in a day, we say that that's probably a bit too much. So calcium in the milk, it competes with iron for absorption. So it could be inhibiting how much iron they're able to get out of their food, and it's also going to be filling them up. So just like the fruit, if they're having too much fruit, or they're having too much milk, they're unlikely to be getting enough veggies. So if you're having trouble getting enough veggies and getting enough dinner into them, cutting back the milk throughout the day can help build up the appetite so they're actually hungry to eat those foods.
If their kids aren't eating their fruit and vegetables and their whole grains, they'll go to use formula if they're not breastfeeding anymore, or they use milk. But I think a lot of people use formula because the way it's marketed to us is that, you know, they're getting all the nutritional benefits. Now, I know that, I can't remember how I know. I think my child health nurse told me that the only reason they actually advertise toddler formula is because it's illegal to advertise it for newborns because it's something that they need to survive. So, if you have a legitimately fussy eater, and by fussy I mean doesn't eat, is it okay to give them formula?
Yeah, this is a really big question, and you are so right. They have to make up for their marketing with toddler milks. And have you seen the ads? The mum guilt is, you know, even I stop and go, wow, that's strong. I love my kid. I want my kid to grow up and be smart and intelligent. And, you know, and it makes you think,
buy my formula.
And, you know, it's got omega-3 in it, which is crucial for brain development. It's like, it is, but if you got a child that had that formula and one that didn't and compared them for their IQ, you know, it's not going to make a difference, right? It's ridiculous, but it plays into it. And if you're already feeling a little bit vulnerable, a little bit guilty, because of your fussy eater or your toddler that's just thrown another dinner on the floor, which is completely normal, no wonder people are buying it. But it plays into, if you've got a fussy eater who is a real fussy eater and having trouble getting a wide variety of foods into them, having a toddler milk is just like having too much cow's milk. It fills them up. And so they don't eat their dinner, but then they get to fill up on the formula. And it tastes nice, it's sweet, it's comforting, it feels heavy in their tummy. There is no motivation to start eating food. So it just plays into it, and then you end up in a vicious cycle. The older children get, and when they have aversions to particular foods, or they just don't want to try new foods, the harder it is to help get them out of it. So my advice is to get off the toddler milks. There are circumstances in children with certain conditions that need them. They will be prescribed them. So unless your health professional has specifically told you they need this, they don't need it. And I do know a fair few parents whose doctors have said, oh, well, you can give them some formula. And they've said that advice because they want mum to feel better. That's not helpful. So if your GP said, oh, well, you can if you want, don't take that.
That's not prescription.
That doesn't mean your child needs it. It means that it may make you feel better for a little while. But it stands in the way of progress. I think it just fills them up. They really don't need it. It is so much better for them to learn over time, and I get that it's a slower, harder process, but to get those nutrients from food, because they're not going to be able to sustain on toddler milk forever.
Oh, they're not? They can't like be 12 with their bottle in their backpack and be like, hey, lunch.
I've got a smoothie, it's okay. I know. What kind of fussy eaters are we?
You just like told me the difference between a fussy eater and a toddler.
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's really difficult for me to answer. So heaps of people will ask me, do you have a fussy eater? And I say no, and I think, well, of course not, you're a nutritionist, your kid must eat perfectly. But then when we delve down into, and I perhaps rattle off the list of all the foods that my toddler doesn't eat, you know, today at the moment, this week, a lot of parents in my position would label their child a fussy eater, but I have the perspective to know that she's not a fussy eater, she's a toddler. She's just learning. So at the moment she doesn't touch any root vegetables. Is meat.
Even potatoes?
Even potatoes,
Wow.
unless they're chips.
Oh, yeah.
Of course. So
Yeah.
she has just started to accept my homemade oven chips with the skin on. So my next phase is to cut them slightly differently.
Yeah.
So that they resemble chips less and less. That's my strategy. But yeah, that's normal toddler eating.
Yeah, cool.
She refuses meals sometimes. A meal that I've cooked and she devoured, and I went, yes, I'm making that again, because both, you know, the toddler and the husband loved it. I make it next week, and
Nobody wants it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's life. That's part of being a toddler. You know, I do not like green beans this week. I do not like green beans today is a common statement, and then the next morning I can put them in her lunchbox and she'll happily eat them. And I think, but you've just got to keep presenting them.
Yeah.
You've just got to keep offering. Where I think it gets problematic is if it's causing trouble in your family, you need to get help. So often people want to wait until they know what the signs of nutrient deficiencies are, or when things are serious, when it becomes a medical condition. If it's causing you stress and you are anxious about dinner times, go and get some help.
Yeah.
Talk to your GP, get a referral to a local nutritionist or a paediatric dietitian. Go and see them once. And they will just give you some advice and some strategies so that you can go home, implement them, and reduce that stress. Because the biggest contributor to fussy eating is mealtime stress.
Yeah.
You know, the more stressed you are, the more pressure you're adding, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah. And then you get cranky because you're all worked up, but really you're just concerned and you're worried. And then you're just projecting it all onto them, and then they're like, I don't want to eat, and it's just this whole reaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And not every dinner time is going to be a glorious party, you know, where everybody's enjoying the food and chatting and nice. There's going to be drama. It's the end of the day. Kids are tired. But we can manage that. And if things are getting out of control in your house and it's causing any sort of disturbance, if it's causing arguments, if you can see that it's just not going well and you don't know what to do, just go and get help now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And also, like, do you really want to wait until there are signs and symptoms? Wouldn't you rather prevent that? Because then you have to then you have to take supplements, or you have to do something to treat it, when if you get it early, it's just a matter of like changing some habits.
Yeah, that's right. And I know a lot of people that will say to me, I waited until, you know, my child was starting school or in school before we went to see someone because the teachers were noticing. And it can be a really hard road once you've got older kids and you're trying to help them overcome fears or sensitivities with food. When you've got a toddler, it is actually relatively easily, because you break habits so quickly, and
because they've only just formed them.
Yeah, and they adapt so easily to new things.
Yes.
It's so much easier to break out of that. And I know as well, perhaps our parents and our grandparents are giving us advice that, we put up with that for you, you know, with you for years. And you think just because you put up with it doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah.
If things are a battle and things are stressful, you can go and get help about it.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a diagnosable condition to get help from a nutritionist.
Yeah, I love that, because like a little bit off topic, but I was reading something the other day that said we're only capable of making a certain amount of good decisions a day. So I can imagine that as a mum, like I reckon all of mine are chewed up by 9 a.m. to be completely honest. But by dinner time, if you've then got a fussy eater and you're like trying really hard to make them eat it and putting all that pressure on, you're not going to make good decisions.
Absolutely.
You're just going to react, you're going to yell, and it's just going to cause a shit fight. Whereas if you just take that out of the equation, you're like, okay, don't eat it then. That's fine.
Yeah.
Let's
And
not worry about it.
if you've got a strategy and some meal plans, and you know what's going to be on the dinner table, or on the table at what time, and you've got a bit of an action plan about what you're going to say or do when a particular food is going to be refused or rejected, and the answer is you're going to be fine with about it. And you're not going to talk about the food. Yeah, we've presented the food and that's it. All of a sudden, it's not so much of an issue anymore, and you have the capacity to not dread that anymore. So there isn't room for making those bad decisions.
Yes,
you know,
because you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
It is only food. It is just food. It is just dinner.
And I guess you kind of answered that with tips on how I can avoid fussy eating from babyhood, but you can't really, because they're just being toddlers, not fussy eaters.
Well, that's right. And some kids are more sensitive than others. Some babies are more sensitive than others. Some children go into their fussy stage really early, so it seems like a long time. So you think, oh wow, no, this kid is really fussy, but they've just got those kind of toddler traits for a little bit longer. The biggest tip that you can work towards it by making sure that you introduce a variety of foods, and by offering a mixture of purees and finger food, I think is a really good way to do it. So some people get started off on the right track, their child's accepting the purees, they're making up some different combinations, but they kind of get too comfortable in that and they're not making it lumpier and lumpier.
Yeah, right.
And then you may get stuck on soft foods. And so if you do that for too long, some toddlers and some kids then have a real preference for those soft, really easy to eat foods.
Yeah.
So we do like to make sure that kids are progressing, that babies are progressing well with having lots of different types of food when they're babies, and to mix up the textures a lot. Because for a lot of fussy eaters, it's not taste related, it's texture related.
Yes.
So if you've got, one vegetable, think of all the different ways that you can present it, both to babies and toddlers. And, even make a list. I'm a big fan of making big lists. If you think that your baby or that your toddler doesn't eat very many foods, doesn't like many vegetables, write down every single type of vegetable that you've offered and that you've seen them eat recently. You might say, oh, they don't like carrot. Is that true, or do they just not like cooked carrot? Perhaps they might like carrot sticks or grated carrot, or they like carrot when I cut it into circles, but not sticks. Yeah. Think of all those different ways, and by getting them used to having those foods presented in those slightly different ways, can increase the chance that it's going to get eaten and liked.
And I think that once you actually write it down and look at it, you'll probably find that your kid actually isn't a fussy eater and does actually eat a lot of different foods.
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised. I often eat, when I do consults, when they say, oh, how can I get my kid to eat more vegetables? What do they eat now? Oh, not much. And then 5 minutes later, they're still going, oh, wait, no, but they will eat green beans. Oh, yeah, so we'll keep adding to the list. So you might be surprised that they do eat a lot of food, and keeping that list handy so that even on the fridge, so that when you're thinking, oh, I need to add something to dinner that I think they're going to eat, have a quick look at your list, and then guaranteed there'll be something in your fridge or your freezer.
Perfect.
That they'll eat.
Yeah.
That you can add in,